Hello and welcome back to my channel. Josh here for all of you who do not know me. Um, so for you, welcome for the first time. I've been going over my book collection so far. This, I believe, is maybe my fifth video. I expect this one to be relatively short since I've gone over pretty much most of my collection in the first few videos. However, I do have a few books that I don't have on my shelf right now and that I actually don't have capacity for to put on my shelf right now. So I plan on showing you guys those today. A lot of these are books that I'm reading or I'm in the process of reading because truthfully, what I do is I don't read a book all the way through without reading other books. It kind of depends on my mood, kind of depends on if I get a new book, that type of thing, on whether or not, or if I'm even interested in the book that I'm currently reading, on whether or not I stick with it for a long period of time. So yeah, without further ado, let me show you some of the newer books and books that I'm reading. The first one here that I'll show you, I just got recently. It's called The Theory of Moral Sentiments, and it's by Adam Smith. And yes, it looks like that is backwards right now. But yeah, so Adam Smith, it's the same Adam Smith that wrote Wealth of Nations. He actually considered this book his best book. And so I thought that would be interesting. I bought it recently, and I've been reading some of it. It's pretty dense, and it's in a lot of detail. It seems like he's almost going for a what is it called? Aristotle's book on ethics. Seems like he's kind of modeling it off of that. And so he's talking about virtue and custom and utility and duty. And he goes into great depth as far as what these attributes are. And he's got propriety here. Some of the old school type of moral attributes. I don't know if I've highlighted anything thus far that I have garnered out of here as far as wisdom goes or any. But, I mean, I'm really big on trying to develop character in myself, in my children, and others. I admire people less for, let's say, financial success, although I do think that there are generally things to be gleaned from people who do have financial success, such as hard work, ingenuity, those types of things. But I usually look for people who I find admirable traits related to character. I usually look up to those people a little more. So I read a lot on that, a lot on ethics, a lot on morality, and this book's been pretty interesting so far. It's a book that I believe I got from Thrift Books, and so it does have some things underlined in it, which I find, and it even has some notes. And so I find that sometimes interesting, just seeing what stuck out to somebody else, who previously owned the book, reading their notes, and just seeing if the same type of things that impact me impact others. That's which I would assume that's the case. There are people that are going to have similar takes, and especially ones who would pick up a book like this. And so it's interesting sometimes to see those notes and those underlined passages. So yeah, that's one book that I'm currently reading. Again, The Theory of Moral Sentiments by Adam Smith. Another book, that I had been reading. So this is a Confession and Other Religious Writings by Leo Tolstoy. I don't believe I've gone over this book in prior videos. This is just kind of post his War and Peace and his other big books, what his thoughts are on religion and the purpose of life, the meaning of life. He was suicidal at one point because he just became so nihilistic, and he is trying to figure out what the true religion is, the best religion is, the best way of life is. He realized that when he was part of the elite class, that none of them really believed what they said they believed when it came to religion. They didn't believe truly in, I think he was surrounded by Orthodox Christians. They didn't truly live out their faith. They just went to church on Sundays, said the proper confessions, but they didn't live out those confessions in their life. And so he said they didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. So then he looked toward the middle class, lower class type people who did live out their lives according to their professions and confessions. And even though materialistically, financially, they were poor, he said that their lives their lives were full. Their lives were full of joy, full of happiness, and full of peace, and full of meaning. And so, I haven't finished it yet. It seems like he basically did away with, at least thus far what I've read, he ended up doing away with a lot of what he called Christian dogma, because he was an Eastern Orthodox Christian. He did away with a lot of what he called the dogma, but that he truly believed that the religion of Christianity, in terms of it being based on love toward your fellow man, was where you find true meaning. So yeah, it's interesting for sure. I do have something, let's see, highlighted here, and I don't really prepare for these videos, if you can't tell, beforehand, so I'm not sure what this is, but I do have a section here highlighted, and we'll see possibly why I highlighted this particular section. So this is Leo Tolstoy, and it's a confession and other religious writings. He says, thus, due to the absence of religion, the people of today's world have built themselves a very cruel, bestial, and immoral life. They have also led their complex, subtle, and useless mental activities to such a level of unnecessary intricacy and confusion in order to conceal the evil in their lives that the majority have entirely lost the capacity of differentiating between good and evil, falsehood and truth. There is not a single question which the men of our world can approach simply and straightforwardly. Every question, be it economics, internal or foreign, civil, diplomatic, scientific, not to mention religious and philosophical ones, are put so artificially and mistakenly, wrapped in such a thick layer of complex, unnecessary argument, and full of so many subtle twists of meaning and words, and such sophistry and debate, that all discussions of such questions go round and round in circles, grasping hold of nothing, like a disconnected car wheel. They lead nowhere except to achieve the one purpose for which they are instigated, to conceal from oneself and others the evil in which men live and in which they commit. So, yeah, in this passage, he's basically saying that we like to get down in the weeds when we are trying to be deceptive. We may be trying to deceive ourselves. We may be trying to deceive others. And so we try to rationalize in so many different ways, and those rationalizations are not grounded in anything that is true, anything that is foundational to life. They're just a means to the end of getting what we want. They're in our self-interest. It's our ego trying to find a way in this life to excuse and justify our sins. I mean, that's essentially what he's saying here. And that he has certainly noticed this, and I have too. I think that's very true in today's day and age, is there is not one thing that a lot of people can't justify, can't rationalize in today's day and age. And I'm sure it's been, the case throughout time, but we're so good at finding excuses for ourselves, finding ways to give ourselves a pass. And so that's what he was saying here in this particular excerpt. And I totally agree, and I think that's why I underlined it, is just because he put it in such a straightforward and I think kind of a more poetic way than I ever could. See, another book here that I had been reading is this one's called The Decline of the West, and it's by Oswald Spengler. This book here, it's pretty thick. It's also got, this is volume 1. It's called Form and Actuality. So he's discussing in this book how history is, he believes, cyclical and repeats itself in certain variations and shapes, and that we can certainly learn from history, but that he almost is deterministic in his view of nations, where he says there's going to be a rise and fall, which, I mean, it is inevitable, right? What nation has, what country has lasted the test of time, has just gotten bigger and better without end? Not one that I can think of. And so that's his whole point through this book so far, from what I can tell, is that he's proposing that these countries in the West, specifically in the countries in the West, are eventually going to fall. And he believed that they were already in their decline. I believe this was written in the early 1900s. Let's see. The original copyright of this book, The Decline of the West. Bear with me here. Let's see if I can find it. I am not finding it right now, but I'm pretty sure it was like right before World War II, I believe. And I'll read a couple things that I've highlighted in this book too, just to give you a sense as to what to expect if you're interested. He discusses how everything in every culture is related. So from mathematics to music to the science to it, like basically every culture throughout history has had an ethos, a certain spirit, and you see it's all tied together. The fashion, like everything is just tied together throughout history, and that he doesn't think that it's that history is like the culminate. He doesn't think that humanity is like progressing in a linear fashion, right? He thinks that it's a ton of kind of disparate countries, let's say plants, right? And that some of them are growing bigger and bigger and they're unique, and some are already withering away, and some are just starting to blossom, and others are reaching to the point of where they've gotten reached such heights, empires that have reached such heights that inevitably, due to the cyclical effect of history, they're going to fall. A lot of the time that is due to decadence and luxury, and usually what accompanies that is immorality, is, let's say, laziness, is a lack of grit and of survival skills. So that I mean, that's his argument, and I tend to agree in that way for sure. And then he talks about too, like city-states versus like the more rural agrarian societies, and how the agrarian societies are going to be healthier. They're going to be more have more vigor and be more vibrant, and you're going to have men and women who are hard workers and diligent, and they have those types of attributes to build a nation, as opposed to those that degrade because they have just reached the peak, which he calls the city-state. So yeah, that's kind of what this book's about, at least what I've read so far. Hopefully that makes sense. I was gonna see if I could find anything that really stood out that I could read to you guys. Okay, so here's the what I was talking about, how he doesn't see humanity as just like on this linear progression as far as uh, success and development and in every aspect of life that affects humanity. This is what he says. He says, I see in place of that empty figment of one linear history, which can only be kept up by shutting one's eyes to the overwhelming multitude of the facts, the drama of a number of mighty cultures, each springing with primitive strength from the soil of a mother region to which it remains firmly bound throughout its whole life cycle. Each stamping its material, its mankind, its own image, each having its own idea, its own passions, its own life, will and feeling, its own death. Here indeed are colors, lights, movements that no intellectual eye has yet discovered. Here the cultures, peoples, languages, truths, gods, landscapes bloom and age as the oaks and the stone pines, the blossoms, twigs, and leaves. But there is no aging mankind. Each culture has its own new possibilities of self expression, which arise, ripen, decay, and never return. This, there is not one sculpture, one painting, one mathematics, one physics, but many, each in its deepest essence different from the others, each limited in duration and self-contained, just as each species of planet has its own particular blossom or fruit, or excuse me, each species of plant has its own peculiar blossom or fruit, its special type of growth and decline. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting so far. Some of it's a little over my head, but I appreciate the way that Spengler thinks and his theory on history, on cultures, and then also on the decline of the West does seem to hold up for the most part. I would be interested to see what he would think about today's day and age. I think, yeah, it would be certainly interesting to talk to him. Let's see. What's another one I'll show you? We got a few more here. I got C.S. Lewis. This is a newer book that I got from Half Price Books. C.S. Lewis. So I've got Surprised by Joy, which is essentially his autobiography. It discusses, from childhood, from birth to childhood to adolescence to him becoming a believer in Christianity. He was an atheist for a short time. It discusses kind of why. It discusses the whole Surprised by Joy thing. Just discusses like these feelings of what he called joy that were almost they were surprising feelings, and they were like something that he couldn't quite describe. He couldn't put his finger on this feeling. It was almost like this otherworldly feeling that he couldn't articulate as to what that feeling was, but he knew what it was connected with, or what it was associated with. And ultimately, I think he realized that this joy could be manifested within himself, or could fill him once he got to know who God was, and see God through everything that surrounded him. So it's a good read. I've also got the Four Loves that he wrote. He's got Reflections on the Psalms and The Business of Heaven. So I love C.S. Lewis's writings. He's a very deep thinker, and he's very imaginative, I would say. And he's an original for sure. Very creative, very unique. And his something about his writings that just tap into my kind of poetic and my poetic side will say my, what's the word, artistic side, maybe that's what it is. But if you have not checked out C.S. Lewis, please check his writings out. I think that you will find a lot of pleasure in that. All right. Another one that I bought recently is called Reflections on the Revolution in France, and it's by Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke was a member of Parliament back in the 1700s. He was there when Britain was going to war with the United States during the Revolutionary War. He actually supported the colonies during that time, trying to break off from Britain because of the lack of representation that they had there in Britain. And these are his reflections on the Revolutionary War. Oh, excuse me, the French Revolution. My apologies, of 1790. I have not delved too deep into this yet. I do like Burke, though. He says some. I thought I highlighted at least one thing in here that I thought really stuck out about the fact that liberty. He basically said liberty disconnected from something like morality isn't a virtue. It's not in and of itself a good thing. Like if you have the liberty to enslave someone or the liberty to murder someone, then that is not virtuous. And so he basically said that liberty needs to be tied to morality, to ethics, to virtues outside of just itself. It's not the supreme virtue, was his whole point. I do remember that standing out. I look forward to reading the rest because comparing and contrasting the American Revolution with the French Revolution has always been fascinating to me because I think there were two different revolutions indeed, for multiple reasons. So yeah, been pretty good so far, what I have read. What else? Maybe just be the last one, perhaps. I don't know. We got The Roots of the American Order by Russell Kirk. Roots of the American Order by Russell Kirk. This one came in the mail from Thrift Books, and he just goes over, what America is founded upon. Like what are the literally the foundations, the principles of America, and what is the Constitution, the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, what were the Articles of Confederation founded upon? And so he goes into, let me give you something here. He goes into just the various, I can find the table of contents here, give you the chapter titles, the various previous civilizations that in the governments within those that the United States was founded upon. Here we go. So the roots of the American order. He talks about the law and the prophets. So he talks about the Israelites and the Torah, right? The Hebrews and them being handed down the Ten Commandments, and how law and order was kind of first recorded then. He talks about the Greek world. He talks about the Rome. So he says, like, the glory and ruin of the Greek world. He talks about the virtue and power of the Roman world. Then he talks about how Christianity came into play. He discusses the Middle Ages and what was passed on to us from Britain to the colonists, the patriots, to the Continental Congress that eventually formed the Constitution. So he talks about the various systems of law that was kind of passed down from the Middle Ages. And then he discusses the reformers, That's going to be, Martin Luther, John Calvin, those types of people. The church and state. So anyway, he's just trying to give us our roots. And I think that's important. I think if we don't know our roots, if we don't know where these systems have come from, if we don't understand that, then we're going to not have any connection to them. We're not going to have any allegiance to them. We're not going to have, and then we're not going to learn from them, right? From the past. Because if we don't learn from the past, then we're going to have to learn in the future what works, what doesn't work. Why try something that's not worked? Why try it again? Why stray from something? Why change something that's not broken, right? Why try to fix something that's not broken? That's my opinion. I think that there are improvements that can be made, but to truly want to uproot the way that things function, as I think G.K. Chesterton said, don't remove a fence that you find in the middle of a field without first asking yourself why it's there, So I think that we need to be cautious about that and about thinking that innovative ways of doing things when it comes to, especially governing, but anything in life. I think we need to ask ourselves why they are the way they are before we change them, and not just come to assumptions, not just believe the first person that gives us some surface level answer that is of a certain political persuasion or what have you, without digging deep and discovering whether or not what they say is true. So yeah, I just started reading this book. That one's new. Let's see if I have any more here for you guys. I found another one that looked interesting called The Intimate Letters of England Kings. It's just about the letters of medieval kings of England. It's their letters. I've been reading The Hobbit a little bit. I'm sure everybody knows what that is. Let's see. I've got Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's Selected Poems. I'm a big fan of his poetry. His one, what's it called? I was reading Evangeline, but it's a long poem. I like it. I like it a lot. It's just it takes me a while to get through. Long poetry, let's say. I don't know if you wouldn't consider that an epic poem. I don't know if you consider it, but it's a long poem about and it's a story. But he's got one called The Psalm of Life. There it is. I'll read that one to you real quick, just so you get a sense for it. Longfellow. Sorry. It's called A Psalm of Life. What the heart of the young man said to the psalmist. This will be the last thing that I guess I'll go over today. Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow find us further than today. Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present. Heart within and God overhead. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing over life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing, shall take heart again. Let us, then, be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. Good stuff. So meaning in life. That's what he's saying. And that it's a gift. And we have to take possession of it. We have to seize it for all that it's worth. And with God overhead, love for our fellow man, pursue noble pursuits. You know, that's what we were placed here for. So I love it. Oh yeah, so I think I said in my previous video that as far as what we're going to do on the channel next, I kind of want to maybe start going over specific books in depth, maybe even do book reviews or something like that. So yeah, we'll see where the channel goes, but I do plan on still making videos and just kind of letting my heart and mind guide me, and maybe if anybody wants to leave me any comments about what they would like to see, then I could, kind of go that direction as well. So I appreciate everybody's time today that was able to stop by and watch this video. And until next time, I hope God blesses you all and that you guys all, live life like it's a song, because it is a song. It's a song. It's a gift. It's a song, right? All right, guys. Till next time. Thanks again. Bye.